The animation industry has been on a massive decline for the past couple years in my opinion. Don't get it mixed up, I'm not saying the quality of animated shows is on a decline. I feel like we are on the edge of the next great animation era. But there is one thing holding back this era from actually happening, and that is the dreaded word, cancellation. Every month you'll hear about another animated show getting cancelled after only getting a season or two. Fired on Mars, The Midnight Gospel, Scavenger's Reign, Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and so many more amazing series. It breaks my heart to watch these shows I love get cancelled. In a lot of cases, there is so much potential in producing more seasons. That's why it's so important to support newer shows like Common Side Effects, Primal, and Long Story Short. They are not only amazing shows, I have the feeling that these shows will be the catalyst to start the new animation era, where shows are allowed to be weirder, have more interesting topics, and different art styles. If I see another show do the Family Guy or Rick and Morty art style, I'm gonna go crazy. Common Side Effects and Long Story Short are both serialized dramedies, which are not common for animation. Most of the ongoing adult animated shows are family sitcoms. Shows like Family Guy, Bob's Burgers, King of the Hill, The Simpsons, The New Norm. Okay, I'm joking about The New Norm, I don't want you guys to get the wrong idea. I love these shows, but how many more animated family sitcoms can we get before more people decide to branch out of the genre? And sure, Long Story Short can be considered a family sitcom, but it's doing something different with the format, with every episode being set in a different year. Also, the art style is unique, the characters feel like real people, it's hilarious, please go watch Long Story Short if you haven't, I'm begging you. But it sucks because a lot of these shows that are pushing the medium forward are being treated poorly by the companies that own them. There is one thing that can kill a show quicker than anything else, and that's poor marketing. Tell me, have you seen anything about Long Story Short other than people talking about it online? Maybe you've seen it while scrolling Netflix or have seen the trailer, but I'm guessing that's all you've seen, if even that. And that's the problem. Companies want something safe like Family Guy, so the more out there ideas like Scavenger's Reign get no marketing. What makes it even more scary is that the guy who created BoJack Horseman, you know, one of the most beloved shows on Netflix, created Long Story Short. And if Netflix won't market a new show by him, then up-and-comers in the animation industry will have a way harder time getting a successful show on Netflix. Which means their show will most likely fail, and then Netflix will make another fucking Paradise PD because it's the safe option. God damn, I hate Netflix. They put out some good shows, but they never market them. But by far, the worst thing they did to the animation industry in the past couple of years was the cancellation of Inside Job. If you somehow don't know what Inside Job is, it's an adult animated series about conspiracy theories, created by Shion Takushi. I'm so sorry, I am really bad at pronouncing names if I got that wrong, which I most likely did. Who, if you don't know, was a writer for Gravity Falls, Regular Show, and many other shows. Gravity Falls is my second favorite TV show of all time, right below Better Call Saul. So when I heard the news that a writer from it was creating a series about conspiracy theories, and Alex Hirsch, the creator of Gravity Falls, was an executive producer of the show, I was ecstatic. While researching for this video, I also found out that Mike Hollingsworth, once again, terrible at pronouncing names, was also an executive producer for the show. If you don't know who he was the supervising director of BoJack Horseman, another one of my favorite shows of all time. Hell, he directed the Fish Out of Water episode, which is one of the most visually impressive episodes in the show, so you know that Inside Job was in good hands. When the show came out in October of 2021, it was generally popular, showing up on the top 10 series list for a week. Sure, it wasn't doing gangbusters like Squid Game or Big Mouth, but it was still popular. It was popular enough for Netflix to renew it for another season in June of 2022. If you didn't know, the first season was released in 2 parts, which I didn't know for the longest time either. I just thought that the second part was season 2 and season 3 was cancelled. But when the second part came out in November of 2022, it had a decrease in viewership. I wonder if it was because Netflix didn't market it at all. So, on January 9th of 2023, Netflix cancelled it, even though they renewed it for a second season, shocking a lot of people, including me. I made a video about it when the news broke, and don't go watch it, it's shit. A lot of people speculate that this decision wasn't only because of declining viewership. It could have been used as a tax write-off. I'm not saying it was, I don't want to get sued, but there is a chance this was the case. This set a terrible precedent. and many other companies since then have taken projects and canceled them, assumedly as tax write-offs. Warner Brothers was in a hot seat when they canceled Coyote vs. Acne in 2023 after the cancellation of Inside Job. Luckily, the outcry was so much that they are releasing it, but Inside Job wasn't so lucky. In the case of Inside Job, there was 9 months from renewal to cancellation, so we can assume they got pretty far in producing season 2, causing a lot of people to lose their jobs out of nowhere. Man, I hate big businesses who do this. And for now, there has been nothing new from the series. I heard rumors that Adult Swim might pick it up, but at this point, I doubt it. The hype has died down, and it's been over 2 years since the cancellation. Would I love it if I was proven wrong? Of course I would, but it's unlikely.
Oh, a man can dream, though. A man can dream.
But I don't want people to forget about this series. I want to go through the series like I did with my Rick and Morty retrospectives, and talk about the good and the bad, just to keep people talking about the show. Before we get into it, I just want to ask one thing from you. After this video, go watch Common Side Effects and or Long Story Short if you haven't already. They deserve to continue their riveting stories and don't deserve to go down the same path Inside Job unfortunately went down. Once again, I do believe that these shows will start the great animation era. But without further ado, let's get into Inside Job. Episode 1 is unprecedented. This episode starts off with a supposedly crazy man in front of the White House talking about how the president is a robot and that the US is being controlled by shadowy elites. Then a car pulls up and takes him away. The driver is Reagan Ridley, and the crazy guy is her father, Rand Ridley. Reagan works as the head scientist of Cognito Inc., which is a company that controls America from the shadows. I love this concept. It basically takes every conspiracy theory you've heard and makes it true, from lizard people to Mothman. There is so much potential and variety centering a show around this concept. I get why the show got picked up in the first place. You can see the obvious inspiration from Gravity Falls, with that show being obsessed with mysteries. And this show is all about the people who create mysteries. I also noticed Alex Hirsch voicing this guy sacrificing a goat, and he will get more voice roles down the line, thankfully. We find out that Rand used to run Cognito until he had a breakdown and was fired. But now Reagan is about to get a promotion that will make her the head of the company. Then we are introduced to Reagan's team. Dr. Andre Lee, a drugged up party animal. Glenn Dolphman, a patriotic general who was combined with a dolphin. Gigi, a media manipulating boss. And Mike, who is a mind-reading mushroom from the center of the earth. So I'll go more in depth with these characters later, but for now, I'm going to say that these guys don't add much to the show, or at least that's what I remember thinking when I first watched the show. I could change my opinion, maybe see the genius in Mike the Mushroom. Reagan is called in by the manager of the company, JR, and he tells her that she is still getting promoted, but he is also promoting a new guy named Brett, because Reagan is very socially inept. Brett is a people-pleasing yes man. Having a new hire in your pilot episode is a great way to set up a workplace show. They won't know much about the company, so the exposition explaining what they do won't feel so forced. At the beginning of the episode, Reagan did say some unnatural exposition that felt a bit forced, but after Brett is introduced, it doesn't feel forced anymore because she's explaining stuff to him. The team loves Brett, and Reagan starts to resent him. Reagan finally finishes her life's work of creating a robot president, because the one that is currently in office is too dumb to control. I really want to make a joke, but I can't get political because people will get mad. But she gets no praise because Brett brings in bagels. Okay, I'm going to rant a bit. This scene pisses me off. I know it's here to build up the rising tension between Brett and Reagan, and also played for laughs, but it just makes me hate the team and JR. The shadowy elites, who are the mysterious people who run Cognito Inc., also praise Brett for this. Like, what? They aren't even there. Why the fuck would they care about bagels? I could get why the team ignores Reagan. They might just be sick of her shit. But the elites should still praise Reagan since she is helping out with their plan. It just makes the elites seem incompetent. And I know it's a comedy series, but still, comedy series can have serious characters. Anyways, Reagan is fired after going crazy trying to convince the team that Brett's a bad guy. Brett is now in charge of the launch of the robot president. It does not go well. He gains sentience and declares that he's going to cut America off from everyone and put it in a cube. God damn it, I really want to make a political joke, but I just can't. The reason why he gained sentience is because Rand tampered with his code, so if Reagan got fired, he would go AWOL. We can even see him changing the code earlier in the episode when he's leaning off screen over Reagan's laptop, which is a cool detail. This shows his two real motives. He wants to spend more time with Reagan, but he also wants to keep Reagan in the company, which will come back later. Brett calls Reagan and they go to stop the president robot. Then Reagan does the worst thing she could have done to stop the robot president, and that's to plug him into the internet to show him that America is not perfect. After seeing copious amounts of diaper adults, he gives up all hope and decides to nuke everyone, which is a fair response. Reagan and Brett work together to stop him. Then the episode ends with Reagan going out to get margaritas with the team, starting her arc of finally getting friends. Trust me, it's sadder than it seems. There's a little stinger at the end that reminds me a lot of Grunkle's stand going behind the vending machine from the first episode of Gravity Falls, with it turning out the robot president is still alive in a bunker. This sets up that this show isn't just going to be episodic. There will be serialization. Overall, this was a great start to the series. It had a lot to introduce, and I think for the most part, it felt very natural. This episode is really funny with some great gags. I really like the one where the building Cognito Inc. is under, the lobby has a TV saying, "We are a company," over and over again. I do have a problem where the characters are constantly cursing just because they can curse, which plagues a lot of adult animated shows. It's not as bad as something like Has Been Hotel, but it did get a bit grating. That might just be me though. This show being about conspiracies is a double-edged sword because you kinda have to be topical with it. Some of the stuff they bring up hasn't aged the best, like when the robot president brings up Worldstar. Hell, that was dated when the show came out. Some of the reference jokes make me groan, but it makes sense why they are there. Other things have aged too well, like with the AI president. The day AI gets that good isn't too far away, and that's terrifying to me. But let's not think about that too much. On my second watch to revise the script, I noticed so many details that will come back later, like JR talking to Oprah on the phone, the Cognito tote bags, Brett calling the team gang, Brett saying his dad called him a nobody, setting up his family issues, Reagan saying she worked her whole life to work at Cognito, which is more true than she realizes, and just so much more. Rewatching the show is definitely rewarding. I get why Netflix gives it the tag most rewatched. Finally, I want to talk about the genius behind the Reagan and Brett pairing. They are exact opposites, and that is always a great duo concept. Their relationship is what makes this show great, but we'll talk about that later. In terms of the ranking, oh yeah, I'm going to rank every episode because I have an unhealthy obsession with ranking things. This episode is going in the #1 spot. Episode 2 is Clone Gunman. This episode starts off with Reagan talking to the robot president, who I'll call Alpha Beta from now on. It's nice that we already get more of him, showing us this show is going to have quite a bit of serialization, and is not just going to feed us breadcrumbs of lore throughout the season. You might be wondering why I keep harping on that point, and that's because most animated sitcoms never do serialization. The closest animated sitcom that does this is Rick and Morty, and this series definitely has a similar vibe to Rick and Morty. Mostly episodic adventures, but is willing to change the status quo. It makes each episode feel exciting to experience, knowing that something big can happen at any time. This episode is about Brett and Reagan having to fire someone from the team. This is a classic workplace sitcom trope, and I do like how they have to fire someone because the whole president fiasco cost $4 billion to cover up. But it feels like this episode should have come later in the show. We hardly know the team, and sure, this episode introduces what they actually do, but there is one thing holding this episode back. I don't care who gets fired. That's a problem, because we are supposed to empathize with them and how one of them might get fired. But all we have seen of them in the series so far is that they are incompetent and annoying. Hell, the beginning of this episode shows them destroying the office just to blow off some steam. So I don't feel bad for them in the slightest. Even if Reagan is hiding the fact that they are going to fire Grassy Knoll, the head of the assassination department, because assassinations never happen anymore. Man, that did not age well. She's hiding this information because the team starts actually doing their jobs, and they are being nice to her for once in their lives.
I resolved the Israeli-Palestine conflict.
Jesus, that did not age well either. Reagan is finally enjoying the feeling of how it is to be like Brett. Actually liked. Damn, that's sad, and that just makes me hate the team even more. Reagan does eventually reveal that they are going to fire Grassy Knoll, and the team hates her and Brett because he is a legend. Once again, we are supposed to take the team's side on this, but all I was hoping for was Reagan to turn around and fire one of them. If they're going to complain, then can their asses. Reagan goes to the clone department to let out a JFK so Grassy Knoll can assassinate him, proving that he is needed. This is a really funny plan. I always love hearing JFK impressions, but I have one small problem with it. Even if they prove that Grassy Knoll is worth keeping, they are still going to have to fire someone else. And sure, at the end of the episode, it's the clone department that goes, but Reagan and Brett didn't have that in mind during this plan. Anyways, a bunch of JFK and other clones escape, and Brett burns a bunch of them, creating an Akira JFK monster. First off, this is such a hilarious concept. I love when shows have such far out their concepts, allowing them to get crazy with their plots. It really spices up the cliche plot of we have to fire someone. Secondly, oh my god, the animation on the monster is fantastic. Like, look how smooth it is. They went above and beyond on referencing Akira, with trying to make the animation as fluid as it was in the movie. And they did a damn fine job. And thirdly, I hate when shows point out their own references. Brett asks Reagan if she's seen Akira, referring to the monster, and I just don't like that. I like when references are kept for the audience to discover and not shoved in your face. Like later when a JFK head is running away and it's a reference to the spider creature in The Thing. They don't say, oh, that's the thing from The Thing, which is nice. It just feels more natural and less contrived to me. The team finds Reagan's bunker with Alpha Beta and are threatening to get her fired for hiding him from JR. Which we know from last episode will probably not happen, because the reason they lost so much money in the first place is because she got fired. They decide to work together to take down the monstrous JFK, using all their skills to take it down, except for Gigi and Brett, they get down instead. Also, I swear I don't want to be so negative, and this is just a nitpick, but how can Glenn hold the flesh-melting acid in his blowhole? Wouldn't he just melt? I know it's to include him in the plan, proving his worth, but they could have at least gave an explanation why he didn't melt, other than his blowhole is strong. The acid works, but a JFK head is about to escape when Grassy Knoll comes in and shoots him, saving the day. And then they decide to get rid of the clone department because all of the clones are dead. The team chooses to hide the fact about Alpha Beta in the bunker from JR, which is a nice moment. In the other plot, Rand needs a new liver, and due to the budget cuts from Cognito, he can't get a new one. So he begs JR that he will do anything for one, and this plot sets up why Rand isn't dead yet for constantly trying to expose Cognito. That's because he has a share in the company, and if he dies, it goes to his ex-wife, which wouldn't be good. JR plans to exploit his neediness by making him give up his share of the company, finally getting rid of him. But when Rand comes to the meeting sober, he negotiates so good that he gets some of JR's share. This sets up how manipulative and cunning Rand is. Earlier, he video called JR sounding frantic and needy, but that was most likely a ploy to lower JR's guard, allowing Rand to get even more stake in the company. I love Rand's character. I know I did a lot of complaining about this episode, but I think it was fine. There was a lot of funny jokes, and I love Brett and Reagan's dynamic. I do kinda wish it took a little longer for Reagan to fully warm up to Brett. She is a social outcast and bad with relationships, but they are already acting like they've known each other for months, even though it's only Brett's second week. There I go complaining again. Even if it's a bit forced, I still do love Brett and Reagan's dynamic. Reagan having someone in the office she can actually talk to and enjoy is very needed, because if it was only Reagan and the team, I would hate watching this show, because Reagan would be hated by everyone, and that would make me sad. Grassy Knoll is played by Alex Hirsch, and he's doing his Old Man McGucket voice, which now I'm imagining Old Man McGucket assassinating JFK, and that's hilarious. This episode sets up Alpha Beta's arc of coming around on humanity, with Reagan giving him the first 6 episodes of Friends, which later we find out he loves. I don't know, if I was stuck in captivity only allowed to watch the same 6 episodes of Friends, I would definitely hate humanity even more. This episode also introduces some stuff that comes back later down the line. One of my favorites is that both Rand and JR have weird looking dicks, and it's revealed later that that's one of the reasons why they decided to team up in the first place. Anyways, enough about this episode. In terms of the ranking, it's going in the number 2 spot below Unprecedented. Also, if you see the tier list on the screen, I just want to explain the tiers real quick. S is an amazing episode. A is a great episode, B is a good episode, C is a fine/mid episode, D is a bad episode, and F is a really bad episode. People do tiers differently, so I just wanted to clear up how I do mine. Episode 3 is Blue Bloods. This episode starts off with Reagan helping move the rest of Rand's stuff out of his ex-wife Tomiko's house. We saw a picture of her, Rand, and JR last episode, setting up the question in your mind what happened to the two of them, since she was nowhere to be seen in the past 2 episodes. And it turns out she divorced Rand about a year ago, which explains why Rand is living with Reagan. Also, I'm pretty sure she divorced him after he got fired from Cognito, causing him to be at home more, and I'm guessing spending more time with Rand is terrible, especially after he got fired. At the office, JR comes in and reveals that they have to go to a Reptoid party, since he accidentally sent an insensitive meme to everyone, including the Reptoids. So they have to get in their good graces since Reptoids are a big financial supplier for Cognito. Lizard people are one of the most popular conspiracy theories of all time, so it makes sense to introduce them early on. Also, the world building in this series is great. It slowly sets up different races and ways Cognito runs. Like in this episode, they bring up the Atlanteans, who we'll see in a later episode. The team goes to an HR meeting because they have to be on their best behavior at the party, and it does not go well. Reptoids hug to introduce themselves, and Reagan is seemingly unable to hug. She punches Brett when he tries to hug her, but she solves this problem by wearing robot arms that will hug everyone for her. She's actually doing really well at the party, with nice firm hugs, and she's striking up good conversation. But when Brett is occupied with his old frat brothers, who are hazing him so he can get to level 6 brothership, Reagan has to give the speech he was supposed to. And it goes amazingly, until she rips off the arms of their leader because her machine malfunctions. While she's running away, Brett picks her up in a car. Brett asks her when the last time she was hugged, and Reagan can't remember, which is so sad. This scene is crucial in Reagan's development, allowing her to talk about her feelings for once. Reagan also tells Brett that his frat bros don't like him, and he has to be fine with that. Last episode, we were shown that he doesn't like being disliked. The thought of it makes him throw up. So Reagan telling him this gives him the courage to not join his frat brothers in a big orgy at the end of the episode. Long story. This is a great moment. It's the first time in the series Brett has shown some type of backbone, and has learned to grow as a person and stop being such a yes man. I can't state how much I love these two together. They learn and grow to be better people from each other, and it's such a great dynamic. I'm so glad they didn't take a romantic route with them. It would have been so easy, but the writers realized they are just better as friends. They are captured and Reagan is sent to court. There, Gigi explains that Reagan isn't discriminating against lizard people, because she's like this to everyone, which is a hilarious defense. Eventually, Rand comes in, and it's revealed that Reagan doesn't like hugs because when she was a kid, Rand built a giant robot named Barrow that would hug her instead of Rand, and she is so traumatized by it, she can't hug anymore. She says that she didn't remember, which could be due to trauma, but also could be due to Rand tampering with her memories, which we find out in a later episode. We'll talk about that, trust me. Then Rand and Reagan hug, and it's sweet, while also funny with her still decking him in the end. They get the financing and everything is good. I was dreading rewatching this episode. This is one of the episodes I remember hating when I first watched the series, but I don't know what I was on. This episode is pretty great. Sure, there are a lot of groan-worthy lizard puns. Like, come on, Al Gore saying my name is actually Alligator. Also, why would Al Gore be a lizard person? He wants to prevent global warming, but lizard people want global warming because they are cold-blooded. Other than that, this is the funniest episode so far.
I played the 5th and the 2nd.
The team wasn't insufferable in this episode. I really like Gigi and Glenn. Mike and Andre only want to have an orgy, and it's not that funny, but it also doesn't get much screen time. Reagan is heavily implied to be on the spectrum. Like 2 people this episode say she probably has Asperger's. I don't know much about this subject or if Reagan is good representation, but I feel like I needed to bring it up. All I know is Reagan is a great character. Finally, I want to talk about Rand. He is such a terrible person, but it's kind of like with Rick from Rick and Morty. Even though they are terrible people, you can't help but like them. The great voice performance from Christian Slater definitely helps with his likability. He always has great delivery. In terms of the ranking, this episode is going in the number 1 spot, above Unprecedented. Episode 4 is Sex Machina. This episode starts off with a whole lot of penis. Basically, JR bought a Tinder knockoff so they can blackmail politicians with their dick pics. And I can't show the scene where all of this is set up because there is a whole wall of penises. Even if they are blurred out, I'm not risking getting age restricted. Then the team starts talking about how Reagan hasn't been in a relationship in a while, and they start betting if she can get a boyfriend in the next week. So her and Alpha Beta make an algorithm to find Reagan the perfect man. And they find a guy named Brian. But Reagan is worried she'll mess things up, so she makes a robot of him to go on a practice date. Eventually, she decides just to date him because it'll be way easier than a real guy. It's crazy that a concept like this is becoming more of a reality with people dating ChatGPT bots. Eventually, Brian bot gets sick of Reagan and makes a robot of her that is very confident. That robot goes out with the real Brian, but Reagan defeats her. Then she asks the real Brian out on a date, but he says no because she explained what happened. Hell, I'm surprised he didn't run off when she tried to explain what happened. Reagan doesn't freak out because she has gained confidence in herself through this experience. She does still have to get him detained by the shadow government because she told him about the robots. She does feel regretful about it. It wasn't for revenge. This plot is great. Reagan does her thing of trying to fix her mental qualms with her inventions, and it gives us a way deeper and personal look into her character. She wants to date Brian, but she overthinks everything constantly and doesn't like the idea that her and Brian getting together isn't 100% chance. Then she literally fights herself to come out of the situation a better person. It does feel a bit redundant to have another fight between Reagan and a robot this soon after the pilot, but it plays into her mental struggles, so I think it's fine. Also, they say that Reagan-bot's body was never found, but this goes absolutely nowhere. They were probably going to do something with her in season 2, but you know how that story went. The other plot follows Brett and Glenn switching bodies to see whose life is harder, and it's obviously Glenn's. They do take it in an interesting route, with it turning out that even if Glenn was hot, people would still not like him because he has a terrible personality. And even though people are mean to Brett throughout the episode, he has a heart-to-heart with Glenn's ex-wife and just listens to her, leading to them hooking up. It shows that even if you are ugly, you can find someone if you have a good personality. So if you're ugly and have a terrible personality, you're screwed. What a great moral. I love how the Reagan plot is about an internal struggle, and the Glenn and Brett plot is about an external struggle. But the B plot does come around to it being about an internal struggle, because it's about their personalities, showcasing that it really is about personality. This episode was great. It had a lot of good gags. I really like the gag where Andre learns not to base procedures off movies after a bad face-off homage, but then turns around and says, let's do a Freaky Friday. I don't mind reference jokes when they are actually jokes like this and not pointing out a piece of media and that's it. I do really like Glenn as a character. He is voiced by John DiMaggio, and that man can't do anything wrong. And the overly patriotic caricature is always a fun one. Overall, a great episode. In terms of the ranking, this episode is going in the second spot, below Blue Bloods, but above Unprecedented. Episode 5 is the Brett Fast Club. This episode starts off with Brett in a hologram room, where he's pretending to have family dinner since he's missing a lot of them due to work. Then JR gives them an assignment. The assignment is that the team has to go to a town where they are perpetually stuck in the 80s and sell dangerous toys that are not allowed to be sold in the 2020s. The team goes to drop the gas that is supposed to keep the residents thinking they're in the 80s, but Mike falls out of the plane, causing the team to go undercover as an 80s family to find him. Brett was the one who came up with this plan, and he's being really pushy, especially to Reagan, who never got into the whole 80s thing. Eventually, Brett tries to spray the team with the 80s juice, so they will be as into it as he is, and accidentally douses himself in it, giving him powers. It's such a classic 80s trope of green goo giving powers out of nowhere. After binging a bunch of 80s movies, Reagan figures out the reason why Brett is being so pushy. It's because he doesn't have a great family life. The hologram family was actually a family from a sitcom Brett loved watching as a kid, and we get a flashback showing us his rich family who ignores him and calls him a failure. God, I hate seeing Brett sad, it's so sad. It does show us why he's such a people pleaser though. He doesn't want to feel the way he did growing up with his family not liking him. That's why in episode 3 he was so devastated devastated that his old frat bros didn't like him. It really recontextualizes his character and makes me love him even more. Reagan talks him down and they go home where Reagan and him have family dinner and watch the Goonies. I love the found family trope, and having Reagan be the one to talk Brett down from his 80s carnage is a great choice. She doesn't have a good family life either, but now they have each other. The other plot follows Michael. Why the hell did I write Michael? I don't think they ever, do they call him that in the show? What? Oh god, I've been working on this video for too long. The other plot follows Mike, who has amnesia, being an asshole to children until they try and kill him. Okay, it's time to talk about Mike. I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but I despise him. He's not only an asshole, he also curses a lot, and yeah, Mike doesn't have much going for him in terms of character. All he is an asshole. He has some funny lines every now and then, but everything else he says or does is just miserable to listen to. And it's not like the writers can't write a likable asshole character. Look at Rand. He's a terrible person, but they also show his humanity, which they don't do with Mike. Yeah, I know, he's a giant mushroom, haha, he has no humanity. That's just my opinion so far in this series. It might change, who knows? Other than Mike, this episode was good. The other team members' dilemmas are entertaining and funny. I especially like Andre's, where everyone is being overtly racist towards him, like bowing and having a gong play every time he speaks, which is even funnier considering he's Korean. It's great commentary on how most media in the 80s didn't have the best representation for different types of people, and it shows the negative side effects of that on society. People are being racist, but they don't realize it because they saw those things on TV and think it's just what every Asian person is like. That's why diversity is important in media, no matter what those people who say woke stuff is ruining everything think. I also like the commentary on nostalgia and how it can be fine to look back fondly on some stuff, but looking back too much can be harmful, like what happened to Brett. That's why the ending scene is so great, with Brett stopping being hung up on his family situation to hang out with Reagan, his newfound family, which is him looking forward, while also looking back a bit with them watching the Goonies. Moderation is key. There are a lot of 80s references in this episode, which makes sense. The plot is based around them, and most of the time it's making a joke out of them, not just stating a reference and moving on. The colors are fantastic in this episode. It has a lot of neon and vibrant colors, and I'm a simple man. I like vibrant colors.
This just in, all the white people are hugging.
What are you talking about? 2 out of the 5 of them are white. And that's including Glenn, who is part dolphin. Man, I hope someone got fired for that blunder. In terms of the ranking, this episode is going in the 4th spot, below Unprecedented, but above Clone Gunman. If you have watched the video this far, please consider liking and subscribing. It helps support the channel. What's your opinion on the series? Finally, if you want to follow my Letterboxd, the link is in the description. Episode 6 is My Big Flat Earth Wedding. This episode starts off with Reagan stressing about her mother's wedding, which she is planning. Her mom is marrying herself, which is hilarious, but also a ploy to get a rise out of Rand. So Reagan is keeping this a secret from him, otherwise all hell will break loose. But he eventually finds out because Reagan somehow forgot her planning notebook in the groceries she got for him. I know she was stressed out, but god damn, that's stupid. Rand crashes the wedding, which is on JR's yacht, with a bunch of flat earthers. It turns out Rand created the conspiracy theory that the Earth is flat because JR bet him that he couldn't get people to believe in that. The concept of this show, where almost all crazy and wacky conspiracies are true, saying that the Earth isn't flat and everyone who thinks it is just plain old stupid, is hysterical. The Flat Earth group hijacks the boat after Reagan outs Rand for lying to them. The team fights back, but the leader of the Flat Earth group is forcing Reagan to take him to the edge of the world, which is actually the hole that takes them to the center of the Earth. Also, Rand and Tomoko tag along, arguing the whole time. In the end, the leader just jumps into the hole thinking he's going to Australia because he thinks the world works like the Pac-Man map. I really want to know how a flat earther would react to this episode. Like, this episode is just taking the piss out of them constantly and saying they are so stupid that they'll throw themselves in a hole to get to Australia. And the sad thing is, it's probably true. Flat Earthers are incredibly stupid. Rapid fire round for the other plots. Glenn feels insecure because Tomoko hires a buff bodyguard for the wedding and not him. But he gets his chance to shine when he saves Reagan from going into the hole to the center of the Earth. Also, we find out he can control sea creatures, which is neat. It's a fine plot, very basic. Andre is forced to be sober, but then licks Mike's fluids to get high. It's revealed that he has a lot of mental conditions, like OCD and Tourette's, and it's played off as a joke mostly. But it's really sad if you think about it. He's a man who has to constantly be doped up in order to not have his mental conditions take over his life. That's just tragic. It's also revealed he was raised in a hardcore Christian household, so it's probably safe to assume that he doesn't talk to his family much anymore, since drugs are generally frowned upon by Christians. Except for the people who sold their house and car thinking the rapture was coming on a random Tuesday. You can't tell me that they weren't hopped up on something. Yeah, so Andre has a sad life and I feel so bad for him. And finally, Brett dresses up as the richest man in the world to try and get Jeff Bezos to buy JR's yacht. I hate Jeff Bezos in this episode. He's extremely unfunny. This episode was fine. It had a couple good gags, but nothing too much of note. Seeing Tomoko and Rand interact is kinda neat, but they are insufferable together, until Reagan tells them to knock it off. Then they are like, hey, let's get married again. Like, what? They were arguing the entire episode. I'm so glad Glenn dragged off Rand so that couldn't happen. This does set up Rand's want to get back together with Tomoko, which will come back later in the series. There's some carryover from this episode to the next episode, with the guy that Reagan meets at the end of this episode being a key part of the next episode. Sadly, I remember hating that episode, but we'll see. In terms of the ranking, this episode is going in last place, below Clone Gunman. Episode 7 is Ghost Protocol. This episode starts off with the aftermath of Reagan hooking up with that guy from the end of last episode. His name is Masters, Rafe Masters, and he's a British secret agent. Reagan goes to work after walking out on Rafe and tells the team that it was a one-time thing. Then they retcon how Reagan never dated anyone since college, because it's shown she was dating a guy named Steve at work. If you're wondering, Tomoko gave us that lore drop in Sex Machina. I hope someone got fired for that blunder. Oh wait, they did. Now I feel bad. Rafe shows up and JR says that they are going to help him take down his nemesis, Dr. Skullfinger, because he helped out with the Flat Earther situation. But in reality, JR just wants the island Skullfinger owns. Thankfully from his blueprints, he's not going to do something incomprehensibly terrible with his island, unlike some other millionaires. Release the files. He's just having a dedicated area for hookers and coke. They help Rafe take down Skullfinger, but Reagan's done with him because he's being really clingy and weird, even calling her his girlfriend. She tries to break up with him, but he just cries like a 30-year-old red pillar who wasn't able to goon for how long he wanted to because his mom made him pizza rolls. Oh my god, what was that sentence? It was so hateful. I think I need to self-reflect for a bit. Okay, that's enough self-reflecting for this year. So Reagan does what any normal person would do and fakes her death. That was a regular show type explosion. It's a comedy weakness of mine when someone just randomly explodes. You played your cards right this time, Inside Job. Rafe now thinks that someone from the team killed Reagan because they are acting suspicious at the funeral and interrupts poker night to interrogate them. I just have to say, I love how the team has now accepted Reagan. They invited her to poker night and they gave her the advice to fabricate her death, which wasn't the best idea, but it's the thought that counts. I remember hating the team when I first watched this show, but I've come around on them. Except for Mike. Reagan goes to talk to Skullfinger to try and get him to escape to take Rafe back, but he likes it there. He does give her the idea to erase Rafe's mind, which Reagan replies how she has never fully erased someone else's mind of someone before. Oh god no. If you don't know, this is foreshadowing for later. Rafe and Brett, who is now Rafe's partner, go to the island where the team is rebuilding Skullfinger's mind erasing machine. Brett knocks him out because he finally realizes that Rafe is a psycho. It took Brett way too long to get to that conclusion, but I can't be mad at this guy. He never stands up for anything, so it's nice to see him standing up for Reagan. Then Reagan is about to erase Rafe's mind when she realizes that she is completely evil for this and should have just talked to him. This episode has commentary on how ghosting is wrong, and all you have to do is talk to the person and have an honest conversation, which is true for a lot of situations, but not with Rafe. He's a psycho stalker that should actually get his memory of Reagan erased. They try to paint Reagan as the bad guy, but they painted Rafe as such an emotionally abusive pervert. I was basically just begging Reagan to erase his mind. Skullfinger then comes in and he and Rafe have weird nemesis sex. This, in my opinion, is the first bad episode of the series. It can be funny on occasion, but I have such a deep-seated hatred for Rafe that makes this episode hard to watch. I get what they were going for. His character is commentary on how a lot of spy movies' protagonists are womanizing misogynists who only care about having sex. So what would happen if a woman walked out on someone like that and showed no interest in him? It's a fine idea, but they take it to such an extreme that it's just really uncomfortable to watch. Like, Reagan is being harassed and degraded, and everyone is complaining about how far she is going. It just feels a bit gross. I'm also not the biggest fan of spy movie parodies, so this episode was truly not meant for me. There is still some good, like I've said before, but the good does not outweigh the bad. In terms of the ranking, this episode is going in last place below My Big Flat Earth Wedding. Episode 8 is Buzzkill. This episode starts off with a hilariously messed up gag about young Reagan trying to create the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in real life, but instead she just gives a bunch of turtles cancer. It sets up her conflict of the episode, where Rand says it's cute, but when she asks if he's proud of her, he says no because she gave the turtles cancer. Rand never says that he's proud of her, and that's all Reagan wants from him. But to be fair, I would also not tell my daughter I'm proud of her because she gave turtles cancer. Back in the present, Reagan is pissed at Rand, so she jumps at the opportunity to go on a mission to the moon to escape her dad. Apparently the moon landing is real, but they decided to stay up there and start a sex cult. So Cognito had to fake the moon landing video. This is genius. They did the best of both worlds. If the moon landing wasn't fake, then it would feel a bit off because it's a series about conspiracies. And if it was fake, then it would feel off because they have such advanced tech in the show, but they can't go to the moon. So making both real was the right idea. The colony on the moon sent Cognito a distress signal. Brett and Reagan go up there and meet Buzz Aldrin, who tells them that they built a society that is nearly perfect. Then Rand crashes the party, stowing away with Reagan so he can find his lost sunglasses he left up there 30 years ago. And Rand has beef with Buzz because he had sex with Tomiko. And this sets up the main conflict of this episode. Buzz Aldrin might be Reagan's dad, and Reagan wishes he is because Rand is an egotistical piece of shit that can't compliment her. Reagan and Buzz hang out while Brett and Rand try to find out who Reagan's real father is. Then Buzz tells Reagan that he wants her to help him expand the moon colonies. But then, of course, it turns out that Buzz is evil, tries to sleep with Reagan, and then starts to move the moon out of orbit. Okay, usually I don't care about cliches, but goddamn, this one is just way too obvious. Like, man, I wonder if Reagan is really going to stay on the moon, and is Buzz actually good? No, obviously not. They don't even let the question linger a little bit. Buzz asks Reagan, she considers it for a little bit, and then he immediately reveals he's evil. They do try and take the plot in an interesting direction when it's revealed that Buzz is Reagan's father. But then it's revealed a little bit later that Rand is actually her father. Like, couldn't they just have kept it with Buzz being her father? It would be interesting, showing that Reagan is the way she is not because of her genetics, her nature, but because of how Rand raised her, her nurture, even if her nurturing was terrible. It would be somewhat interesting making this episode feel a bit special, but they had to take it back. The other plot follows the team telling the actor who plays Buzz Aldrin on Earth that he has to stop playing him and he doesn't want to. He's voiced by Henry Winkler, which is epic. Then Buzz on the moon escapes to another moon, so he gets to keep playing Buzz. This plot has very little to it. There's only a couple scenes, but there are some pretty funny gags. I like the one where it's revealed that Jimmy Fallon is a sleeper agent, and the reason why he is the way he is because Cognito messed up his brain. This episode's good. Even though I harped on how cliche this episode is, I still enjoyed it. I really liked Rand and Brett's dynamic, with Brett being the classic yes man, but he really just wants a father figure in his life because his dad is terrible. Aw. But then Rand just yells at him for being an idiot at the end, which, boo, fuck you, Rand. I think the emotional moment between Rand and Reagan works well, with him telling her that he's hard on her because he wants her to be the best she can, because he's a fuck up. It's nice for Rand to admit that he's just a bitter old man that has amounted to nothing, and takes it out on Reagan. It shows growth in his character, even if he won't really change. I like the continuity between episodes, like how Brett brings up how he didn't get an attaboy from JR from the wedding episode. Also, the world building in this episode is great, with us seeing Atlantis from the moon, and them explaining why there's craters on the moon, and that's because of giant space worms that burrow in the ground. But I do have to wonder, the entire world saw the moon with giant thrusters. How is Cognito going to cover that up? And also, Reagan and Brett drive a spaceship right out of the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool. Are they not trying to keep things under wrap? That's just a nitpick. Overall, a good episode. In terms of the ranking, this episode is going in the 5th spot, above Clone Gunman, but below the Breakfast Club. Episode 9 is Mole Hunt. This episode starts off with JR promoting Reagan to CEO, because he is going to become one of the robes. But after she gives her acceptance speech, it turns out someone stole a document that contains every hoax and conspiracy Cognito has ever created. So JR tells the team if they don't find the mole, then they will all be sent to Shadow Prison, which is a high security prison where the Shadow government sends people. That's where they probably sent Brian after Reagan told him about the robots she made. This is fantastic world building, finally answering the question of where people who are too dangerous or know something are put. This is an Among Us episode. The team has to find the imposter. Oh my god, what am I doing with my life? I always love these types of episodes, having everyone be paranoid and pointing fingers at each other. But the reveal of the real imposter has to be satisfying in order for it to be a great episode. They go to Alpha Beta, and for some reason he can't tell them who stole the papers even though he watches the security cameras. He does reveal that it has to be someone with high clearance, and so it has to be someone from the team. They start to investigate, and everyone has a motive. Gigi has applied for a job at the Illuminati, which we will talk about more later. They denied Andre's truth serum. Glenn dabs, and Mike is a dick. Eventually, Reagan drugs them with truth serum, which only makes the rising tension worse, with them being too honest, like with Glenn saying that he's been trying to get Mike deported, and how it's revealed that Gigi and Andre have hooked up before. The tensions are at an all-time high when Rand falls from the ceiling with Reagan's hand from the Clone Gunman episode. So he would have clearance, but he says that he just wanted to congratulate Reagan on her promotion. I just want to say that Reagan isn't the smartest throughout this sequence. She says that it can't be Rand because why would he want to tear the team apart? He wouldn't, but that document can do some serious damage to Cognito, which he is still spiteful that they fired him. But she trusts the man who said he wanted to bring her cupcakes. But at the beginning of the episode, he couldn't even say he was proud of her. That's not a problem with the writing. It shows that Reagan still wants to see the good in her dad, even if he is insufferable. And it's an interesting route to go. Reagan and Rand escape into a bunker with security cameras, and the team and Rand fight, eventually with Reagan confessing that she is the mole so everyone would stop fighting. She's not really, but she wants to go down for the team like a good boss. I love this moment. Reagan has been struggling throughout the episode with the morality of running Cognito. She wants to run Cognito and make it better, but she learns that that's extremely hard. She drugs her friends, which she feels bad about, and she's trying to repent. So she says she'll turn herself in. But then we get the reveal that the real culprit is Barrow. I haven't really brought him up much this season. He's just been in the background since episode 3. Rewatching this episode, I knew it was no one from the team, but forgot who the real culprit was. And the reveal did genuinely surprise me. Now, did it surprise me in a good way? That's where the episode ends, so we'll talk about that reveal more in the next episode segment, and find out if it's a satisfying explanation. The B-plot follows JR and a bunch of higher-ups going through a maze to see who is going to become the next robe. And there we meet Oprah, who is a part of the Illuminati. So in this world, the Illuminati is a rival company to Cognito, which is a great concept, and they will be way more important in the second part of the series. This side plot is really fun. It shows how even though JR is a narcissistic asshat, he is smart, and it makes you realize why he was running Cognito. I think this episode was great. I'm a sucker for mole episodes, and even though I knew it wasn't going to be someone from the team from the start, it was still really entertaining. Adding on to Brett standing up to Reagan, which he would have never done at the start of the series, showing his growth as a character is great but tragic. They are best friends, and knowing Brett, he is probably taking the idea that she betrayed him for her psycho dad hard. He keeps a tape recorder on his chest to get his feelings out because he feels like the team gaslights him. So seeing Reagan betray him, he probably is thinking about how maybe Reagan just gaslighted him into thinking that she was his friend. I mean, when she saw the tape recorder, she immediately accused him of being the mole and said that she was right about him from the start. What a bitch. The team are all assholes, but it makes sense for this type of episode, so I'll let it slide. Rand is showing signs of changing, with him cleaning up the house and bringing Reagan cupcakes. It's nice continuity from the last episode, with him trying to be better to her. In terms of the ranking, this episode is going in the 3rd spot, below Sex Machina, but above Unprecedented. Episode 10 is Inside Reagan. Okay, so this is basically a season finale. I know that the 2 parts are all one season, but it was split in half and the second half wasn't released until a year later. And this just feels like a season finale. So I'm still going to say this is a season finale. This episode starts off with Barrow explaining that he has been watching Reagan, and since his only goal in life is to make her happy, he plans to eliminate everyone and everything that makes her sad. That includes Cognito, the team, and Rand. This is actually a great explanation. I was worried going into this episode that Barrow's motive was going to be bad, but it was set up in episode 3 that Barrow was Reagan's only friend. So seeing how unhappy she is now is making him want to do something about it. Reagan tries to shut him down, but she can't remember the password for him. The team runs away, and Reagan, Brett, and Rand plan to go into her mind to find the password. They have a machine for that, of course. They are the shadow government. It's called Project Jellybean, which was apparently used to control Ronald Reagan. Brett wants to come with them, but Rand reminds Reagan that he was going to turn in Rand, so Reagan decides just to have Brett stand guard. I will talk about this scene at the end of this segment. They go in and they find some memories of Reagan's childhood, and her memories keep glitching, showing a kid named Oren with her. She can't remember him. I love the aesthetic of Reagan's memory palace, with it being based off of conspiracy boards. Brett falls into the vat to go into her brain and tries to make it up to Reagan because he's a G. He stumbles into a memory of Reagan in high school, where she was mocked by classmates, and he decides to take her to homecoming. Even though this scene sounds like it would be creepy from an outsider's perspective, it's really sweet. He's just there for Reagan, trying to make her feel better. I love Brett so much. He also finds out the password for Barrow. Reagan decides to try and go into her suppressed memories to find the password, and Rand is being oddly pushy for her not to see them. She ties him up and goes into one, where she finds out Orion was her friend. But since Reagan wanted to stay in the 4th grade with him, instead of skipping grades, Rand erased her memory of Orion. He reveals that he wants a backup plan if JR tries to kick him out of the company, so he needs her to progress fast. So, holy shit, this is fucking insane. Throughout the season, we have seen that Rand isn't a great father, but it seems that he's been growing and trying to be better, but this is unforgivable. Reagan went through life with no friends, and it's his fault. Her awkwardness, her sadness, all because he wanted her as a backup plan. She didn't get any real friends until her 30s. That's insane. I love the moment where Rand tells Reagan not to let Brett come in, because it shows that he wants to always have control over Reagan, and he will manipulate and ruin her relationships no matter the cost to her. He's a truly evil character, who has no remorse for his actions. At the end of the episode, when the team comes back to defeat Barrow, and Brett tells her the password to shut down Barrow, saving the day, Rand is still just like, good job tricking Barrow into thinking you like your coworkers. Like, what the fuck, man? Then he has the gall to say that he wants to erase their minds of this event together. Reagan rightfully stands up to him and kicks him out of her life. And goddamn, it's so satisfying. The next day, everyone is happy, and Reagan is about to start her first day as boss, when the Robes give her a call saying that due to the disaster that was yesterday, they are making Rand the boss and have sent JR to Shadow Jail. Okay, hold up. Rand is the person who created Barrow. Sure, he might have more stakes and experience running the company, but he is the person that caused the fiasco in the first place. These shadow people are mad stupid. And that's where the episode ends. What a fantastic episode. It takes all of the character growth Reagan has had this season and lets her finally stand up for herself and attempt to kick her dad out of her life. Her growth is greatly shown when the team ends up in her lab, and they find a message where she says that she couldn't do it without them, and says nice things about all of them, except for Mike. She says him being such a dick makes everyone look better. Hilarious. This gives the team the courage to go and fight Barrow. It's a very satisfying arc for the team. They are usually super selfish, but them seeing this message, realizing how much Reagan truly appreciates them, gives them the power to fight back against Barrow. The end of this episode completes Reagan's journey of self-betterment. She has friends, she has a higher self-worth than she has ever had, and she finally realizes the thing that is holding her back, Rand. I love the moment where Brett tries to apologize to Reagan, and Reagan's like, I remember what you did for me in high school. It's so sweet. I didn't even bring up how the team used Alpha Beta to help take down Barrow, and now he's allowed to roam around the office. I can definitely see the Gravity Falls influence with this episode. The episode where Dipper, Mabel, and Seuss goes into Stan's memory to stop Bill from getting a passcode is a very similar concept, but that's one of the best episodes from that show, so I don't mind seeing a different take on that concept. I love how the Mind Machine is called Project Jellybean, which you'd assume it's called that because of Ronald Reagan's obsession with jelly beans. But then it's revealed that it's called that because Rand calls Reagan Jelly Bean, which is an amazing reveal. This is a nearly perfect episode that has everything I love about this show. It's funny, it has amazing character drama, the serialization is great. I remember watching this episode for the first time and being like, what the fuck? Rand taking over the company is a great cliffhanger that sets up so many potential stories in the future, and I can't wait to revisit them. In terms of the ranking, this episode is going in the number 1 spot, above Blue Bloods. So that's part 1 of Inside Job. Revisiting this part has made me remember how much I hate Netflix for canceling it. It has so much potential stories and ideas that will probably never be explored. It has an ongoing story, characters who change, plots that no normal sitcom can do. If I had to compare it to another show, it's a lot like Futurama. A very out there idea for a workplace sitcom that allows the show to get weird and wacky with its concepts. I remember when this show first came out, my biggest complaint was that I didn't like the team that much, but on a rewatch, I really liked them. Sure, none of them have that much depth, especially Gigi and Mike, but I think the writers just didn't want to focus on them that much on this part. They wanted to focus on Reagan's journey of finding friends and self-worth. And they do sprinkle some deeper stuff with their characters, like with Andre having many mental conditions, and Glenn's struggle after the dolphin surgery. It's sad that we didn't get a season 2, because I bet if there was one, they would focus on the team way more. Brett's a legend. Reagan and his dynamic is definitely the best thing about this show. It's sweet, they are both good to each other, and help each other through stuff, giving each other advice and comfort. And then there's Rand's villain arc. I know I should hate his guts. I know he's an awful person that should probably be executed for crimes against the Geneva Convention, but I can't bring myself to actually hate him. Maybe it's because I know more about him next season already, but he just has such a charm to him. He's manipulated me into liking him. There are some things I don't like about this part, mainly how sometimes its crude humor and cursing is a bit much. People are constantly saying fuck and making sex jokes, which is fine. I just think they went a little overboard with it. For me, the funniest jokes aren't the ones that are about cursing and sex. It's clever, well thought out jokes. That's why Gravity Falls is my favorite comedy of all time. They restricted themselves with it being a kid's show, and they crank out banger after banger joke, without relying on crudeness. That's a big problem with adult animated shows. They think they need to constantly say fuck and shit and reference sex in order to prove that adults should watch their show. Now, I'm not saying that crude jokes can't be funny. They can. It's when a show over-relies on those types of jokes, it can bring the show down. Okay, rant over. The character designs are great. The art style isn't too different from shows like Rick and Morty or Family Guy, but it's different enough to stand on its own. The animation can also be great. There are moments where the animation is so smooth that it looks fantastic, but for the most part, the animation is very stilted and characters can look lifeless when they're not talking. It's not very noticeable though, I just had to bring it up. This part is a great first part of this show. Sure, I didn't vibe with a couple episodes, but 7 out of the 10 episodes being good to amazing is great for the start of a show. Most shows' first seasons are a bit rough. It feels like the writers are still getting used to the world and the characters, but it feels like the creators of Inside Job knew what they wanted from the start and didn't feel like there were much growing pains in the series. Before we get into the second part, I want to talk about the intro real quick. It's a banger. The song is weird and mysterious, which fits the show. I especially like this part. I might be wrong about this, but it kinda reminds me of a musical version of redacting something, which fits with the conspiracy vibe. The visuals are also great, showing us where Mike came from, Glenn's surgery, Reagan in a robot, and so many more fun visuals, showing that this show is going to be about conspiracies. Like I said in my best cartoon intros video, intros should introduce the audience to the characters and the world of the show, and this intro does a great job doing that. Okay, I think it's time to finally get into Inside Job Season 1, Part 2. Episode 11 is how Reagan got her groove back. This episode starts off with Reagan in front of the White House, telling bystanders the truth about the shadow government, paralleling the first scene of the show with Rand doing the same thing. Brett picks her up and they go to work. Rand is now a tyrannical boss that is changing things for the worse, even saying hell to the Rogue's plans. Reagan tries to start a mutiny, and Gigi lays down the facts that JR was also pretty evil. So Rand being their leader now won't change much. Okay, so this part I don't like. It would make sense for the team to think this at the beginning of the series. But after their arc last episode of them learning to appreciate Reagan, it feels like all of them have regressed. This man has done awful things to Reagan that are unforgivable, and they are just like, one evil man to another isn't that bad. But he specifically hurt Reagan. And it's especially odd that Brett doesn't stand with Reagan. What would have been a better choice, in my opinion, is that the team decide to join her, and Rand just immediately shuts them down by saying that he'll send them to Shadow Prison. It would have been a simple change that would make the team feel like they respect Reagan, but aren't going to Shadow Prison for her. Reagan then goes to Anonymous, a support group, where she and this guy named Ron get into a spat. He says that she's just whining, so she decides to go and take down Rand herself. The team and Rand are planning on going to Bohemian Grove. In real life, it's basically a club where a bunch of rich people gather to party. So obviously there are going to be conspiracy theories about it. Rand wants to beat the head of the Illuminati, Dietrich Kluge, who looks a lot like Mads Mikkelsen, in the yearly games, so he plans on using nanobots to increase his strength. But Reagan is planning on sabotaging him by controlling him with the nanobots. At Bohemian Grove, Reagan starts to sabotage Rand, but then Dietrich is also being sabotaged by Ron, who works as a memory eraser for the Illuminati. Reagan and Ron fight, eventually leading them to get captured and imprisoned with Alex Jones. Normally the celebrity comedy doesn't work for me, but it does here with Alex Jones because they go hard on him and it's hilarious. I also like how he's not just there to be there. He has snuck into Bohemian Grove in real life, so it would make sense for him to do it again. Reagan and Ron escape together and end up in an owl statue where they open up to each other. Ron was at the meeting because he was depressed about what he was doing for the Illuminati and how he has to remember all the memories he has erased. Not for much longer, am I right? Oh god, I'm sad now. He also tried to drink a bunch of memory erasing serum on his 10th anniversary with the Illuminati, so we know he's not in a good place mentally. Reagan and him bond, and then start fucking. Which leads to the funniest part of the episode, with them accidentally making Rand and Dietrich make out. Then Reagan and him agree that they are going to focus on themselves and not other people, which is nice, and we'll see more of them together. For some reason, Ron throws away his memory erasing gun, even though he's still working with the Illuminati. Amateurs, why do I even watch this show? I'm joking, of course. This first introduction of Ron is great. I already really like him. He's a great counterpart to Reagan, and he's also voiced by Adam Scott, the GOAT, who does an amazing job as him. When mainly live action actors voice act, sometimes they are pretty bad because they are not used to it, but Adam Scott does a fantastic job. Another plot follows Gigi, Brett, and Andre trying to get back at the Illuminati for making fun of Gigi about her constantly applying for a job there. They resolve the plot by drugging them. This team does that a lot, never accept a drink from any of them. I like the line where Oprah says that she isn't the first Oprah, because throughout the whole episode, I was wondering how she survived the 9th episode where JR killed her, but it turns out that she is just another Oprah. I do really like how Gigi got some character growth, with her realizing that she doesn't want to be with those assholes, and would rather stay at Cognito with her friends. It was a much needed character arc, since Gigi didn't get much fleshing out in the last part. Then the last plot follows Mike and Glenn worrying about being ugly. They get recruited by the Juggalos, then Rand tells them they look stupid, and they leave. That plot's nothing special. It has like 3 scenes, but I do like Alex Hirsch doing his old man McGucket voice to talk about public masturbation.
Ain't nothing wrong with masturbating yourself in public.
I also love the joke of how the leader of the Juggalos has the most impressive mind Mike has ever read. This was a good start to this part. It begins many plot lines like Ron and Reagan's relationship and how JR escaped the Shadow Prison. He was being used as a hunted guy for the games, but due to Rand and Dietrich's fight, he got to escape. I love that twist. It keeps you excited to see what he's going to do to try and get Cognito back. Then we also get some world building, showing us other shadow organizations, like the Atlanteans, the Juggalos, and the Catholics, which the latter will come back later this season. It's an interesting route for Reagan not to care that her dad is the head of the company anymore. I mean, especially after what was revealed last episode, I feel like her and her friends should care, especially Brett. You let me down, man. But they had to get the show back to a status quo of Reagan and the team going on missions, so I like the inclusion of Ron being Reagan's coping device so she doesn't freak out anymore about Rand. In terms of the ranking, this episode is going in the 6th spot, below Unprecedented but above the Breakfast Club. Episode 12 is Woes Feratu. This episode starts off with Ron and Reagan hooking up in a closet. We find out they are using each other as coping mechanisms. You know what? That's definitely not the worst thing you can turn to, so good on you, Reagan. Rand and the team are preparing for Tomoko's arrival because she said she wanted to talk to Rand. Rand assumes that it's because she wants to get back together with him, but it's actually to reveal that her and Keanu Reeves are dating. Okay, so I'm going to get this out of the way here. The Keanu Reeves impression is really bad and hard to listen to. It's like if Keanu Reeves smoked 30 packs of cigarettes. Roger Craig Smith voices him, which I was surprised to find out. He does amazing voice work. He's most commonly known for playing Belson and Clarence. Oh, and Sonic, I guess. But he just can't do a Keanu Reeves impression. That kinda goes for all the impressions for the celebrities in this show, except for people like Oprah, because they don't have to exaggerate her voice. She talks pretty normally. They did nail Nicolas Cage though. It's been a gripe I've had throughout the show, but now that Keanu is in a lot of scenes, it's very noticeable. Everyone loves Keanu, and Reagan supports her mom, even though she never likes her boyfriends. Rand is pissed and tries to get Reagan to break them up, but she says no. Then the team assumes that Reagan is getting laid, and they say finally, like she wasn't getting laid only a couple weeks ago by Rafe. Reagan hangs out with Tomoko and Keanu, and Tomoko and Reagan have a nice moment where she is happy that Reagan is supporting her. And because there has to be a plot, Reagan finds out that Keanu Reeves is a vampire who drinks blood to stay young. I mean, yeah, this is another theory I see a lot. How Keanu never ages, and other celebrities as well. We find out more about him when Ron shows Reagan Keanu's file because some of the celebrities are controlled by the Illuminati. I'm pretty sure some are controlled by the Illuminati and some are reptoids. Also, Gigi finds out they bang and Reagan tells her not to tell anyone. Reagan tries to break him up by disguising herself as Keanu, and that fails. I mean, why didn't she just knock on the door, say, "Hey mom, can I show you something?" and show her the room with the barrels of blood and feeding tubes? If she doesn't believe her at that point, I think she deserves to die. But because we need to have an epic climax at the movie premiere, Tomoko doesn't believe Reagan. Reagan plans to kill Keanu, and they fight, ending up in a chapel, where Keanu reveals that he wants to stop drinking blood and grow old with Tomoko. That's all fine and good, but why did he fight Reagan in the first place? He knows she knows he's a vampire, so why did he reveal his true intentions after they fought? Before we get into the ending, I want to talk about the other two plots because they all converge here. Rand is upset that Keanu stole his wife, so he plans to make an action movie to get himself an Oscar. He has Andre whip up some youth theorem, but it goes wrong and turns Rand into a baby. This plot is my favorite part of the episode. It's nothing great, but seeing Rand as a kid is hilarious. I know, I'm a very simple man to please. I actually really like Mike in this episode, with him being a disgruntled director, and he has some great lines.
Holy shit, your mom is having a sexcellent adventure with Bill and Ted?
Then the other plot follows Brett trying to get Leonardo DiCaprio to star in the movie with Rand. And he ends up joining Leonardo's old posse, consisting of Q-Tip, Kevin Conley, Tobey Maguire, and Lucas Haas, which was actually a real group, and he teaches them not to be misogynistic. You go, Brett. It's a really bad plotline. I really only know Tobey Maguire, and it's not really that funny to have a bunch of celebrities just being misogynistic. And that's the whole joke. Everyone ends up at the chapel, including all the A-list celebrity vampires, and they are going to drain Tomoko's blood. But Reagan has the bright idea to feed them Rand's blood because it's infested with STDs and all the vampires die. Then Tomoko breaks up with Keanu because she finds out he's really old. So this episode is pretty bad. I generally don't find celebrity parodies in this show funny, and this episode has a lot of those. I do like the action movie subplot, and there are some good gags, but overall, it was painfully generic, plot-wise. Like, what? Keanu is actually not good for Tomoko, and Reagan has to get rid of him without upsetting her mom? Who could have guessed that would happen? Tomoko episodes have not been too good. My main problem with her character is that she is Rand's ex-wife, not Tomoko. What I mean by that is that she really just feels like a plot device to get a rise out of Rand. And there is not much else to her character other than that. Maybe they would have expanded on her character past being horny and being Rand's ex-wife in season 2. Once again, fuck you, Netflix. In terms of the ranking, this episode is going in the 11th spot, below My Big Flat Earth Wedding, but above Ghost Protocol. Episode 13 is Reagan and Michael's Hive School reunion. This episode starts off with Mike being a dick and ruining a mission. What else is new? The team is fed up with him and Reagan yells at him, making him cry. It turns out that his 5,000-year Hive School reunion is coming up and he's nervous and angry. Everyone else in the Hive merged to have the same mind, but Mike was an outcast, so he left. Now I know that I said I wanted them to expand on the characters more, and they do with Mike in this episode. But starting off with Mike being insufferable isn't a good way to start an episode where you are supposed to have sympathy for him. The team goes to the reunion with Mike, pretending to be his Hive, so that he can take revenge by proving how cool he is. Then he's a dick to the entire team throughout the episode, so Reagan outs him for being a fraud. Then Mike assimilates with the Hive, causing him to trap the team except for Andre and Glenn, and harvest their brains for information to take down humans. I do love the lore reason why humans exist. It's because a monkey ate a mushroom that metaphorically opened up his third eye, allowing it to start evolving. Andre and Glenn have a side plot where Andre drugs Glenn with mushrooms because he has never taken them before. Okay, Jesus Christ, this team needs to be stopped. They keep drugging people's drinks. Next episode, they're going to introduce a new member to their team, Bill Cosby. They get Mike to go back to the way he was by making fun of him, and they have a quote-unquote emotional moment where Mike says that he doesn't need the Hive because he has his friends. Okay, so this plot sucked. There were a lot of funny moments, but they needed to do more in order to make Mike likable this episode. Sure, they reveal how he was a reject in Hive School, but they didn't do enough for me to care what happened to Mike, since he was an asshole the entire episode and the entire series. I feel like they should have made Mike sad at the beginning of this episode and have everyone wondering why he's not quipping and being a dick. That would have made me relate to Mike a little bit more. But no, he's just an asshole. They try to give this episode the moral of be yourself, but Mike is a toxic person. He needs to change. The be yourself moral isn't as black and white of a topic that most shows portray it as. If you're an insufferable asshole, you should change for the better. At least this plot added a bit more to his character. But there is a big plot hole. Mike talks about Goku in Hive School, but that was 5,000 years ago. Goku didn't exist. Jeez, that was such a bad mistake. Same with how Rand has sniper teams outside his office window, even though they are underground. At least the joke with him having a sniper team watch the sniper team is really funny. Also, Reagan says they never willingly hung out with Mike after work, which is just untrue with him being at poker night. And it's rich coming from Reagan, who used to be the one not being invited to things. Those are all nitpicks, by the way. I'm just being cheeky. The B plot makes up for the A plot. It's about Rand going crazy because someone shit on his desk. He finds out that JR is living in the walls. After JR escaped from Bohemian Grove, he came to Cognito because he knew Rand would take down all the surveillance from the robes. And JR found out that the robes are secretly surveilling the building, so Rand agrees not to tell them about JR if he gets rid of the cameras. It was a fun plot. I always like when characters are going crazy, but then it turns out their craziness is justified. This episode was fine. I know I dunked on the main plot a lot, but there is still some good in there, especially the designs of the mushrooms. I never talked about it, but I love Mike's design, so seeing more mushroom designs is great. And I love the color scheme of this episode. I will admit it, Nice Mike had some funny lines.
You're all fired.
Except you, Duplicate.
Never mind, this is the worst episode of the entire series, because they reminded me of Duplicate from Invincible. I hate her and the Immortals so much, you don't understand. In terms of the ranking, this episode is going in the 10th spot, below Clone Gunman, but above My Big Flat Earth Wedding. Episode 14 is We Found Love in a Popeless Place. This episode starts off with Reagan telling Gigi that she wants to ask Ron out.
You're a living stem cell, Steve.
Call me Incel Steve now.
Oh god, that might be the worst joke in the entire show. It made me physically cringe. So when the opportunity arises for her to go on a mission to brainwash the Pope because he is too progressive, Incognito created a hell under Rome with animatronic demons to scare people into being Catholic, and the Pope reasonably thinks that's a crazy idea, Reagan accepts the mission and she invites Ron. That's just a hysterical concept. I love it so much. Ron brainwashes the Pope, but Reagan speeds up the device so they are not late for dinner, causing the Pope to become too Catholic. They go to try and stop the Pope who started the animatronic Hell Uprising, but Ron gets hit by the same device, making him way too self-conscious about being a sinner, and he's dragged off to hell. Reagan goes to save him, and they have a conversation about how Reagan wants to date but was too scared to ask, and they both were. Also, Ron talks about his Catholic upbringing, and how it felt like he was always being judged, which is very relatable to me. They stop the Pope and start dating. In the other plot, the team also wants to go to Rome, so they go to a secret airport. But after Glenn says the TSA isn't a part of the military, everyone gets captured by the TSA and tortured. The worst torture is Andre's. He has to watch the stand-up comedy skits in Seinfeld, and I'm a Seinfeld fan, but watching those scenes is truly a fate worse than death. Glenn saves everyone, and he learns the lesson that the TSA just wants to be respected like him. Which, boo, no, fuck the TSA. I don't like how everyone now just randomly hates Glenn. It's weird and came out of left field. I know this might piss some people off, but this episode is also just fine. I like the Rome stuff, but they had to do the liar reveal plot that Reagan actually caused everything that happened. And obviously Ron is mad because she made him think it was him who fucked everything up. It does make sense for Reagan's character to hide that fact though. The last time she told the truth to someone she liked, he denied her and was sent to shadow jail. But it's just kinda maddening to watch. Like, come on Reagan, just tell him. Also, she is racist towards Italians. This isn't the only episode. She makes the Pope say Mamma Mia for God's sake. Speaking of the Pope, I find the Pope is evil trope very lame. And no, it's not because I'm an offended religious nut like some of you said in my Rick and Morty Season 7 video. Because they had an evil Pope in that episode as well. It's just a lame concept in my opinion. The other plot was a nothing burger. Some fun gags, but other than that, nothing special. I know that I've been kinda hard on this part so far, but I remember the next 4 episodes are all bangers, so I'm ready to be positive again. In terms of the ranking, this episode is going in the 10th spot, below Clone Gunman, but above Reagan and Michael's Hive School reunion. Episode 15 is Brett Work. This episode starts off with Brett visiting his family for their annual ranking of their children. Brett comes in last after the dog, and he's sad. I hate all these motherfuckers. Brett might be a bit spineless, but he still has a heart of gold. It's nice to get an episode centered around Brett's family, since we haven't seen their terribleness in action other than a flashback. Brett becomes a news anchor for Patriot News, basically a Fox News parody, and becomes really popular. I love the concept that the deep state runs both sides of the news, and use their extremist views to hide the fact that they are just trying to cover up things the deep state are doing. It's some nice world building, showing us how Cognito controls people the most. The Illuminati uses actors, and Cognito uses news networks to scare people, and of course gets them to consume stuff like corn syrup. Brett is so popular, Rand makes him run for senator against his brother, which is causing an inner conflict for Brett, since his family finally started to respect him. Also, Rand wants to be senator, so he can take over the government and make a law that every divorced couple has to go on 1 date a month. That is truly evil. Brett starts to get overwhelmed because it seems no matter what happens, someone is going to be mad at him. So him, Reagan, and Alpha Beta plan to get him cancelled. It doesn't work because Brett is too nice of a guy and just makes people like him even more. They eventually just plan to fake Brett's death. It's hysterical that Alpha Beta calls Reagan out for this idea because it didn't work well for her back in Ghost Protocol. But it's true that everyone in the office faked their death at one point or another, so it's Brett's turn now. They fake his death, but now Brett's supporters think that his family assassinated him. His supporters are planning to do a whole French Revolution on the Hand family, guillotine and all. Brett, Reagan, and Alpha Beta go to protect the Hand family, and we get more insight into Brett's childhood. He hung out in a treehouse outside the property line and made puppets. But his dad said that he couldn't make a business out of it because it would besmirch their name. Okay, that man has done some terrible things, neglecting and manipulating Brett to name a few. But talking bad on puppets has to be the worst thing he has ever done. Brett supporters are about to take out the Hand family, but Brett intervenes, and he makes his puppet, Little Brett, tell them the truth. Brett is tired of being walked on. He hates his supporters for just wanting to hear their opinions repeated right back to them. And he hates that his family only cared about him when he was beneficial to them. Then Little Brett dies, and Brett still stands up for himself. You go, Brett, tell them. Brett's supporters leave, and it seems like the day is saved until Brett's co-host on Patriot News comes in and tries to kill the family because she wants to take revenge on them. Brett jumps in front of the bullet, saving his brother. Then his dad says that Brett is now his number 2 favorite kid and even gives Brett an attaboy, which we know that he has wanted for a while. JR and Rand didn't give it to him, but he finally got one. And Brett is happy. Okay, this is the only part I don't like about this episode. Brett should tell him off. Tell him that ranking your kids isn't okay. But Brett just reverts back to his old self and becomes spineless again. I know family can have some powerful weight over you, especially since Brett has been neglected all of his life. But having him be happy about that just immediately nullifies his journey in this episode. Just have him say, I don't care anymore. I don't need to impress you, and this episode would be amazing. The ending ends with Little Brett coming back to life and going on a rampage on Rand in the office, stating things like Brett needs a raise. This episode is great. Brett hasn't gotten much focus this part, so having an episode centering around his family trauma was a great idea. I'm also glad that it's Reagan and Brett teaming up. Reagan cares for Brett and doesn't want him to feel bad, so she sticks by his side. That's another problem I have with this part so far. There isn't enough Reagan and Brett interactions. I love them together. They are my favorite duo in the show, so it's sad that this is the first episode this part to focus on their relationship. This episode might be the funniest in the entire show. The way it portrays both sides is funny, and Little Brett is the GOAT. The ending segment is probably the hardest I've laughed throughout the entire show. I also love the social commentary about how people just want to hear their ideals and ideas regurgitated right back at them, and don't want to be challenged to change. It's a big problem nowadays, with it feeling like so many people are stuck in an echo chamber and not wanting to come out of it. Okay, part 2, you're coming back. In terms of the ranking, this episode is going in the 3rd spot, below Blue Bloods but above Sex Machina. Episode 16 is Ron Tajan. This episode starts off with Statler and Reagan talking about work and how Ron hates it. Reagan thinks that if he quits, that they will have nothing to talk about and their relationship will fall apart. Damn, Reagan, you need to stop overthinking things. That is her character, though. She wants Ron to work at Cognito, so she asks Brett to hang out with them to make a good first impression. And for once in Brett's life, he does not like someone, and that person is Ron. This is such a great plotline. Having Brett not like someone is such an interesting concept. And maybe him learning not to be so spineless in the last episode gave him the ability to not like someone. Also, his dislike of Ron feels natural, without putting anyone in the wrong. Ron is insulting him at every point, but he's not meaning to. He's just a sarcastic, ironic son of a bitch, which is a very stark contrast to Brett, who is extremely genuine. Reagan is going to throw a Halloween party at the office to try and get Ron to join Cognito, and even plans to have him sign the contract during the party. Brett makes Andre make a virus that will infect Brett, making him like Ron. At the party, Brett tries to interact with Ron, but the virus doesn't work. Eventually, the whole office is infected with the virus, making everyone become really friendly to Statler. The way the virus spreads is because Brett accidentally contaminates the beer. At least this time, the team unknowingly drugged people with their drinks. God damn, why does this keep happening? Eventually, everyone is chasing Statler, Reagan, and Brett, and they plan to get Brett's DNA to make a cure for the virus since he doesn't like Statler. But then Statler tells Brett it's okay that he doesn't like him, and Brett starts liking him. Damn, what a cruel twist. So now with no option left, Reagan comes up with the plan to erase everyone's memory of Statler, which obviously Statler does not like very much. I noticed while writing this script, I go from saying Statler to Ron a lot. They are the same person. Statler is just what everyone calls him, if anyone was confused. They erase everyone's memories of Ron, and Reagan immediately introduces Ron to them. This part makes no sense. Even if they forgot about Statler, Reagan introducing him should make the virus act up and start all over again. They didn't get rid of the virus, only their memories of Statler. Then the episode ends with Statler saying that he needs time to think. Throughout the episode, he sees things that portray Cognito as evil, like baby organ harvesting and a bunch of cloned Hitlers. Yeah, I'm on his side. Why do they need them? His whole dilemma with working with the Illuminati is that he's unhappy that he's working for an evil company. So moving from one evil company to another is obviously not what he wants. And the final nail in the coffin is how the only option to solve the problem is to erase everyone's memories, which is the thing that keeps Ron awake at night. Damn, that's such a good conclusion. In the other plot, Rand and Tomoko go on a date in the holodeck because of the law he passed last episode, but he leaves halfway through and tells Alpha Beta to seduce Tomoko for him. He does, and he actually feels human connection for once, but jealous Rand comes back in and kicks his ass for trying to get with her. I like this plot. It makes Alpha Beta a bit more human, with him realizing that there is worth in human life. And Rand, of course, blows it with Tomoko because he is a stuck-up prick that can't change. All he has to do is put effort into the relationship, just like how he puts effort into Cognito. Okay, maybe he should use a different type of effort for the relationship, but the point still stands. The episode ends with Rand getting a call from the Robes saying that he needs to meet them about his performance as the head of Cognito. So this episode was pretty good. I always love when shows do Halloween episodes because firstly, it's my favorite holiday, and secondly, I love seeing what characters wear. Reagan being Daria fits her well, and Brett dressing up as Chris Angel does something to me that I will not elaborate on. Also, Halloween is so close now, this episode just made me more excited for it. The colors in this episode are phenomenal. They really nailed the Halloween vibe. This feels a bit too familiar to the Rick and Morty episode Rick Potion number 9, with Morty using a love potion to get Jessica to like him, but then the whole school is infected with it. Sure, that's based off the zombie trope, but the twist on the zombie concept is basically the same between the episodes. I still love zombies, so I'm down for a zombie episode anytime. In terms of the ranking, this episode is going in the 9th spot, below the Breakfast Club, but above Buzzkill. Episode 17 is Project Reboot. This episode starts off showing us that Ron has been ghosting Reagan. Brett tries to set up a movie night with the team watching Shazam starring Sinbad, but then JR comes in and reveals the real movie is supposed to be Kazam. He got the poster tattooed on his body for some reason. If you saw it before and haven't seen Kazam, then it's a good indicator that something is up. He tells the team that Rand must be using Project Reboot, a machine they created in college that changes things in the past at random, creating a new timeline. We also get to see how they started Cognito, with the Robes kidnapping them after creating Project Reboot, and the Robes want them to modernize their ways. And that's how it all started. I'm a sucker for flashbacks explaining how things came to be, so I love this flashback. The team now has to stop Rand and put tinfoil hats on because it stops them from going to another timeline when the machine activates. Andre takes his off immediately, and his timeline gets changed, making him disappear. We later find out he's a millionaire now. The team finds this out and looks at their alternate timelines, and they all have an amazing life, so they choose to leave. Now, usually I would be mad at this, but it's not out of character for them. Like, I'm sorry, if you could choose a life where you are a millionaire married to Scarlett Johansson, I think you would choose that life as well. They did take it a bit far, knowing that they needed to get to Project Reboot as fast as they could. Otherwise, the world may end. And of course, they choose to slash the van's tires. This also furthers Reagan's abandonment issues, since she thinks she has lost Ron and now she has lost her team. Her, JR, Alpha Beta, and Brett make it to where Project Reboot is, and Alpha Beta says thank you for letting him be part of the team. This is a great character arc for him. At the beginning of the show, he was bloodthirsty and hated humans, but hanging around the team and falling in love with Tomoko has softened him up. They do kinda drop him being obsessed with friends in the second part, but that's probably also a reason why he has changed for the better. Brett and Reagan make it to the front door of the building Rand is in, and my favorite scene from the show happens, where Reagan hugs Brett. She tells him thank you for not leaving her side, but then takes off his hat because she saw he has a great life in the alternate timeline, and if things go wrong, she wants him to be happy. Oh, I love this so much. They always look out for each other. Brett's the only one on the team who never left her side, and so she lets him go knowing that it's for the best. This shows that Reagan will do what's best for the people she loves, even if it hurts her, and this will come back next episode, and it's just so sad. Oh my god, it's so sad. This scene also shows Reagan's immense growth, with her actually being able to hug Brett. The last time she tried to hug him, he got punched in the face. I love this scene so much. It shows the two's platonic love for each other in a heartbreaking way that even made me tear up. Reagan goes inside to take down Rand, but she sees a drunken mess of a man. His plan isn't to take revenge on the robes. All he wants is Tomoko and Reagan, not to hate him. He admits he's fucked up, and he realizes that you never know what you have until it's gone. Rand is a terrible person, but like Reagan says, he's still a person. He's fucked up, and throughout this season, we are shown that Rand is trying to get Tomoko back, so his motive here is sound. I will also say that one of the reasons he accepted the job back at Cognito in the first place was to get closer to Reagan again, since she kicked him out of her house and life. So this reveal has been set up throughout the season, and it's quite sad. I also love the parallel of Reagan telling Rand he can't fix relationships by pressing a button over and over again. And Reagan looks at a picture of her and Ron, since throughout the episode she has been texting him constantly, hoping to fix things. God damn, the writers cooked with this episode. Rand and Reagan are about to turn off the machine when JR comes in, shoots off Reagan's finger, and says that he's going to use the device to get a better life. A life that he deserves. The team and Rand have been really mean to JR this season, so this makes complete sense. JR is shown to be Rand's opposite throughout the entire series, and it's shown here clearly. They are both extremely selfish, but all Rand wants is his family back. But JR wants things like cars and mansions, showing that he's not going to grow as a person and only wants physical things. Brett comes to the rescue after he remembered what happened because he wrote it all down on his Shazam poster, and takes out JR. Then it's revealed that the whole team came back, not because they missed Reagan, no, but because their lives weren't as good as they thought they would be. Classic team. They didn't learn anything and are all unhappy with any situation they are put in, so they at least want to be unhappy with friends. Then the episode ends with Reagan sending Rand and JR off to the robes for punishment, and Rand does something that was not thought possible before. He listens to Reagan. She says that Shadow Prison is probably best for him, and he agrees. Then the episode ends with Reagan texting Statler again, saying that she needs him. I love this episode. The emotional moments and payoffs are fantastic. We get some great Reagan and Brett moments. It feels like everything that this season has built up has finally paid off, except for one, which was tactical. They had to save that plot for an episode of its own, which is obviously Reagan and Ron's relationship. This episode is quite funny, especially JR. He's a terrible person, but goddamn, that man is funny. He should do stand-up.
Probably not stand-up, but no, he is funny.
Yeah. Try to stand up, but yeah.
The concept of Project Reboot is probably my favorite of the entire series. It's very original and creates some great conflicts internally and externally. Amazing episode. Definitely a great penultimate episode for the series. In terms of the ranking, this episode is going in the second spot, below Inside Reagan, but above Blue Bloods. And finally, episode 18 and the final episode of Inside Job is Appleton. This episode starts off with the office throwing a party for Reagan for taking down Rand. She's happy until Statler texts her and says that they need to talk. She puts Brett in charge of cleaning up all the still existing anomalies from last episode, and she goes to talk to Ron. Ron doesn't want to break up. He wants to move to a small town, Appleton, Wisconsin, erase their memories, and live a happy life together. This was well built up throughout the season. The way he and Reagan met was because they were both unhappy with their jobs. And Ron, the more and more he thinks about what he's done, the more he wants to forget and move on. He just wants to live a normal life, and he wants Reagan to join him. Reagan goes back to the office and tells Brett that she's running away with Statler. He begins to argue, but sees that this workplace environment is not good for her. So he says that if it makes her happy, it makes him happy. And they hug. Fuck, they are so fucking cute. Reagan is about to leave when the Robes kidnap her and tell her that they want to make her partner. She will learn every secret there is to tell. To get on her good side, they even tell her how and why the Robes were founded in the first place. Since the caveman times, there have been smart people, and in order to protect the stupid people of the world, they formed the Black Robes. Great explanation. They even brought up how the famines and terrible stuff they have done were for the greater good. But Reagan now has to make the choice between Statler and her goal of making the world a better place. Alpha Beta helps Reagan in the holodeck by finding every reality that her and Statler would be happy together. And most of them show work is a big problem. It shows us that Reagan will never be willing to give up her job. But then we see one reality with Ron and supposedly Reagan having a kid, and Reagan knows what to do. Then Reagan goes to Appleton with Ron. Before we get into the ending of that plot, let's get into the Brett plot. It's definitely way less serious and lore heavy. This plot shows us how much Brett has grown from the first episode. He is able to lead the team, but when he finds the real Airbud, and he has to kill him, he can't. It's so sad because Brett states that Airbud is the first role model he's ever had, which makes you immediately side with Brett, because we know how terrible his childhood was. So having to kill something he holds dear to his heart is hard for him. But if he doesn't kill Airbud, dogs will evolve and take over the earth. He tries to prevent the potential dog uprising by beating Airbud in basketball, which he fails at. Then he runs away with Airbud, and the team stops him and tells him that he needs to kill the dog. Then Brett stands up for himself and slaps them. He finds a solution to the problem by putting it in the rule book that dogs can't play basketball. This plot really shows the cruelty of the shadow government. No one wants to come up with other ideas other than killing the dog because it's the easy solution. And that's why Brett is crucial. He brings humanity to the team. I love how Brett sees himself in Airbud. I mean, he is called the golden retriever of the team. This plot is very stupid in a good way. There are some hilarious gags. I especially find the reveal that Airbud beat Brett 104-2 hilarious. And really well timed. And also, Airbud is so goddamn adorable. Look at him! Now, into the ending. Reagan and Ron are in Appleton, and Ron tells her to erase his memory and read him the script to give him his new persona. Okay, quick nitpick. If Ron thought Reagan was going to stay with him, who was going to read Reagan her script? Since Statler couldn't, since his mind would be erased. She tells him that she can't go with him, that he will eventually find someone new who can love him full-heartedly. And I'm not gonna lie, this part made me cry. I wasn't that invested in their relationship. They were cute together, but we definitely needed a couple more episodes focusing on their relationship. But that doesn't stop the fact that this is a huge gut punch of a reveal. Lizzie Kaplan, who voices Reagan, does a great job throughout the series, but this scene really shows how great she is as an actress. Reagan leaves and accepts the partnership with the Robes and goes and reconnects with Brett. They hug and she tells him that big things are coming and that she is going to change things around here. And we get one final stinger, with the Robes saying that Reagan won't see what's coming, and that she is just human after all, hinting that all the Robes are something other than human. And they are ready to start Project X-37, which, what the fuck? You had to leave us off with that cliffhanger? What the hell is their plan exactly? Shion, if you are somehow listening to this, please tell us. I know you probably can't because you would get sued to hell and back, but I got to know. This episode is phenomenal. It's the most emotionally impactful episode in the show. Reagan has been obsessed with becoming the leader of Cognito the entire show, and it's a great dilemma to have Reagan have to choose between Statler and her dream job. And she of course chooses her dream job. I love how she is showing how much she is like Rand. She could have had a happy life, but chooses to fiddle with the mind of a loved one to get her way. Sure, her situation was consensual, unlike Rand's, but still similar. She's being selfish, just like her dad. Statler wanted her with him, not to wake up alone, with a new life, and she couldn't give that to him. She's obviously not obligated to go with his plan, but she gives him the false hope that she's going to join him. Reagan's a fantastically complex character, and it saddens me that we never got the ending of her story. I really love this line she says. It really shows who she is as a person.
And as long as the person you love is happy, maybe you can be happy later.
Ah, that's just such a fucking good line. She puts others first, which in turn makes her life hell. That's why she still works for Cognito, even though it makes her mentally unwell. She just wants to make the world a better place. I'll talk more about the cancellation in the conclusion, but just know that rewatching this ending, having a huge cliffhanger, makes me hate Netflix so much. I'm so glad Brett and Reagan's friendship got some highlights in this episode. It showed that Brett is needed to make Reagan's plan to better the world a reality. Reagan is kinda immoral, but Brett will go above and beyond to try and make everything right without having to do something immoral, shown with his side plot. They would have been a great team. In terms of the ranking, this episode is going in the first spot, above Inside Reagan. And that's Inside Job. Revisiting this series has brought me so much happiness. I love this world, I love Brett and Reagan, I love the stories, and fuck it, I like Mike. There's my character arc, bitches. There are some things I still don't jive with. Like in part 2, I wish we got more Brett and Reagan interactions. A lot of the comedy still relies on sex jokes and saying fuck. Not as much as the first part, but still more than I like. They do the type of joke where a character says something won't happen, and then it immediately happens quite a bit, and those types of jokes are just lazy in my opinion. And some of the side cast is still not that fleshed out. But I don't care. This show means a lot to me because it's the reason I'm still making YouTube videos. I credit my Rick and Morty Season 6 video as my first video to blow up on this channel, which is true, but a couple weeks before that, I made a review on part 2 of Inside Job. Don't go watch that video, it's awful. But it got a couple thousand views, which is a lot for someone that had less than 25 subs at the time. And it inspired me to make the Rick and Morty Season 6 review. So without Inside Job, I wouldn't have my dream hobby. So thank you, Shion, for creating this wonderful show. To end this segment before we get into the ranking, I want to talk about the cancellation of Inside Job. I want to take this moment to read the tweet the showrunner, Shion Takeuchi, wrote after Inside Job was cancelled. I'm heartbroken to confirm that Netflix has decided to cancel Season 2 of Inside Job. Over the years, these characters have become real people to me, and I am devastated not to be able to watch them grow up. Reagan and Brett deserve to get their endings and finally find happiness. And I would have loved to have been able to share what was in store with you all. To everyone who watched, thank you for coming along on the ride. Even though I'm sad, it helps to know there's people out there who cared just as much about these characters as me. Ooh, that shit got to me, oh my god. When I first read that, I didn't tear up, but reading that out loud, I don't know, it's just so sad. God damn you, Netflix. This is heartbreaking. I feel for her. What makes this statement even more heartbreaking is how Netflix treated the show. If Netflix had canceled the show without renewing it, it would be sad, but what can you do about that? What makes me pissed is that they renewed it for a second season. Netflix gave the creators hope that their series can continue, that they can do something special with it, but then they squashed their dreams just like that. It's not only immoral to cancel a show that has been renewed for another season, it leaves the fans dissatisfied. It's not like with Scavenger's Reign, where the creators left it open for a season 2, but it didn't need one. No, Netflix gave them hope that they would get a season 2, so they went all out with the finale, giving us some major cliffhangers, getting everyone excited about the potential plot for the next season. And now we will never know what happens. Netflix's decision makes me scared for other shows. Like long story short, it's been renewed for another season, but it hasn't been doing so well. So I'm just waiting for the moment where Netflix cancels it, and that would break my heart even more. The moral of the story is that big companies like Netflix only care about money and not artistic expression. And I know Shion will never watch this video, but I just want to say that you made a difference. You made a great show with lovable characters and a great world, and you should be proud of yourself. I don't think she's done anything recently, but I will definitely be there for the next thing that she's attached to. Okay, I think I've made my piece. Let's get into the final rankings. In 18th place is Ghost Protocol. In 17th place is Woes Feratu. In 16th place is My Big Flat Earth Wedding. In 15th place is Reagan and Michael's Hive School Reunion. In 14th place is We Found Love in a Popeless Place. In 13th place is Clone Gunman. In 12th place is Buzzkill. In 11th place is Rontasion. In 10th place is the Breakfast Club. In 9th place is How Reagan Got Her Groove Back. In 8th place is Unprecedented. In 7th place is Mole Hunt. In 6th place is Sex Machina. In 5th place is Brettwork. In 4th place is Blue Bloods. In 3rd place is Project Reboot. In 2nd place is Inside Reagan. And in 1st place is Appleton. Holy shit, I was not expecting this video to be so long when I first started working on it. If you've gotten this far, would you comment Inside Job deserved better? Just so I know people have gotten this far in the video. If you liked the video, please consider liking and subscribing. Please go watch Inside Job, Common Side Effects, and or Long Story Short. If you have already seen these series, what do you think of them? And do you have any other recommendations? Okay, I've been working on this video for way too long. I need to go take a nap. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.